The day I learned my mother didn't die in a fire, but was betrayed by the people I trusted most. When I was 6 years old, I believed the world was simple. I believed my father loved me and that when tragedy struck, it was just fate. But what I didn't know was that the story I was told about my mother's fate was not only incomplete, it was carefully rewritten to hide a betrayal so deep it would shape my entire life. They told me my mother lost her life in a house fire. They said I was lucky to survive. They said she was gone too quickly for anyone to save her. But even as a child, something inside me whispered that this story did not add up. My memories of that night were fragmented flames crackling outside my window, smoke choking the air, and then arms lifting me out into the cold night. I never saw my mother's body. I never said goodbye. All I had was silence. And the silence only grew heavier as the years passed. My father refused to talk about her. Photographs of her vanished from the house. Her belongings disappeared. And when I asked questions, he would grow angry or simply turn away. But secrets have a way of leaving cracks. And through those cracks, I began to see glimpses of the truth. When I was 13, I found the first clue in the attic. Beneath loose floorboards lay a metal tin scorched with ash. But intact inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to my mother and dated months after her supposed passing. They came from a place I had never heard of, Rosewood Psychiatric Facility. The words inside chilled me. My dearest Claire. One letter began, "You are stronger than they believe one day. The truth will set you free." It was signed Dr. Samuel Hawthorne. I stared at the letters for hours, shaking my head. If my mother had truly been gone in the fire, how could there be letters written to her later? How could there be talk of freedom unless she had still been alive the night of the fire, unless she had been hidden away rather than lost? My father discovered me reading the letters that evening. He ripped them from my hands and his voice broke into a rage. "If you keep digging into things that are over, you will regret it for the rest of your life." I wanted to believe his anger came from grief, but deep down I knew it came from fear. The more I grew, the more the story unraveled. Why had her wedding ring never been recovered? Why were neighbors discouraged from speaking to me about her? Why did my stepmother Delilah, who had entered our lives only months after the fire, speak of her, as though she had abandoned me rather than been taken away? Delilah had a talent for whispers. She would lean close to neighbors at parties and say, "Such a shame her real mother just couldn't cope." She walked out and never looked back. Imagine hearing that over and over as a child. Imagine being told by the woman now calling herself your mother that the woman who gave birth to you had left you behind willingly. The shame burrowed into me like a worm, and for years I wondered if it were true, if perhaps I was unlovable, if perhaps my mother had indeed decided I was not worth keeping. But the letters said otherwise, and the silence in our home screamed otherwise. So by the time I turned 16, I knew I had to search for the truth. Rosewood had closed down years before, but I tracked its remains through public records, bankruptcy files, and dusty archives, until finally one rainy night I found myself driving hours to its ruins. What I discovered chilled me. The walls were blackened, the ceilings collapsed, the air thick with mold. But in the basement, I found cabinets swollen with patient files, and among them, the one that changed everything. Patient number 1073. Claire Matthews, my mother. Her diagnosis, written in shaky ink, delusional disorder, claims husband intends to harm her for financial gain. Recommended indefinite observation. I sank to my knees, clutching the file because the words were clear. My mother had not been unstable. She had been silenced and institutionalized for speaking. The truth, she had known someone was planning her downfall and no one had believed her. Inside the same cabinet was a locked box. I pried it open with trembling hands. Inside were cassette tapes labeled with dates from the year she disappeared. When I pressed play, my mother's voice filled the room, weak but steady. "If you are hearing this, then they have erased me. She said they will tell you I am sick, but I am not. I am trapped. Your father is drowning in debt. He took out a policy on me. If I disappear within 5 years, it pays $2 million, and Delilah helped him plan everything." I nearly dropped the player. My body shook with rage and horror. I remembered Delilah's constant false tears, her gossip, her sudden arrival in our home, and now here was proof she had not only taken my mother's place, but helped orchestrate her downfall. My mother's voice continued. "I keep asking why my treatment is being delayed. The doctors say one thing, but your father and Delilah insist on waiting. They tell me to be patient. But I feel my time running out. I listened to every tape until my ears rang with her words, and each one confirmed what I feared. My mother had not been lost in a fire. Her life had been stolen through lies and delay, through calculated cruelty disguised as care. I wanted to go to the police immediately, but fear gripped me. Who would believe a teenager with old letters and tapes? Who would believe me over my father, a respected businessman, or Delilah, who had built her reputation on being the perfect stepmother? So I bided my time. I recorded Delilah's gossip, every false tear, every performance at school meetings, where she told teachers I had been abandoned, every cruel word at parties when she painted me as damaged goods. I hid money from babysitting and small jobs until I had enough to leave. The breaking point came on my 16th birthday party. While I fetched cake plates, I overheard Delilah telling her book club that my mother had been unstable, that I had likely inherited her so-called defective tendencies. I clenched the plates until they cracked. That night, I packed my bag and left a single note on her vanity. Now you will know what abandonment feels like, unlike my mother. I am choosing to leave. I moved in with my Aunt Rosemary, 4 states away. She was my mother's sister, the one Delilah had systematically cut out of our lives. Together we went through the evidence, and she turned pale as I played the tapes. She told me we had to take it further, and with her help I contacted Detective Morrison. She listened for hours, her eyes heavy but unflinching. This is more than fraud. She said this is conspiracy. This is withholding life-saving care until it was too late. The investigation unfolded like lightning subpoenas, bank records, witness interviews, and soon the picture was undeniable. My father's company had been collapsing under debt. He had taken out a large policy on my mother, and together with Delilah, they had delayed her treatment until hope was gone, ensuring the policy would pay out when her life ended within the coverage period. The fire that supposedly consumed her had been nothing but a staged cover to erase the evidence. My father was arrested on a Thursday morning. Delilah was taken hours later. Their faces splashed across local news headlines. Local businessman charged in wife's suspicious death. Stepmother accused of conspiracy. The trial was brutal. I testified, reading my mother's own words to the jury. I played the tapes, I showed the letters, I revealed the lies Delilah had told about me, and the jury wept with me. In the end, both were convicted. My father received life without parole. Delilah received 30 years. At sentencing, I stood before them and said my mother spent her last months believing she was loved. Never knowing she was being betrayed, she worried about leaving me behind. Not knowing you had already planned to erase every trace of her. I hope every day you remember her voice. I hope you remember how she trusted you. Afterward, Detective Morrison gave me a sealed letter found in a safety deposit box from my mother herself, written 2 weeks before her passing. "My darling Eliza," she wrote. "If you are reading this, it means I did not survive. But please know you were my joy, my light, my every reason to keep fighting. Trust your instincts. I believe you will uncover everything and bring justice to the lies that destroyed us." Her words became my mission. I could not let her life end. As just another statistic, I created a nonprofit called Stolen Goodbyes, dedicated to exposing fraudulent claims and suspicious losses. Within 2 years, we had saved families across the country from similar fates. We stopped partners who delayed treatment for profit. We exposed relatives who plotted to erase loved ones for money. Every case I took felt like carrying my mother's torch forward. On the 5th anniversary of her passing, I stood at her grave with letters from families we had helped. I read them aloud and whispered, "Your suffering was not meaningless. You saved them through me." In that moment, a cardinal landed on her stone, her favorite bird, and I felt her presence. I knew she was proud. Years later, Delilah requested a meeting from prison. She looked older, harder. She told me she had no regrets. She called my mother weak. She claimed what they did had purpose. I laughed and said, "My mother died. Loved you will die alone and forgotten." She said my father wanted to see me to explain. I told her. He could explain himself to my mother in the afterlife, and I walked away free for the first time. Now I share this story because silence only protects the guilty, and lies only grow in the dark. They told me my mother died in a fire. But the truth was that her life had been stolen by betrayal and greed. I will keep speaking her truth until the end because she deserves to be remembered as the strong, brave woman who trusted love, even as it destroyed her. And because there are others out there right now facing the same hidden dangers who need to know they are not alone.